Another awful performance for the Falcons on Thanksgiving night to the Saints now renders the assessment of the future the only relevant topic for Atlanta fans. We'll talk on today's show, though, why one national writer says that future should include Ohio State's Chase Young. It's on the way next on AJC Falcons News Now.
This is AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Here are your hosts, Brandon Adams and former Atlanta Falcon Chuck Smith.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. My name is Brandon Adams. This is the former Atlanta Falcon Chuck Smith. Good to be back with you again after a holiday hiatus for us on Friday. Back here talking about the Atlanta Falcons. Unfortunately, we are talking about the same old as Atlanta dropped another game. This time the revenge match against the New Orleans Saints. And Chuck, at this point in time, what is there that hasn't already been said about what is just one feeble attempt after another to establish anything of permanence for these Atlanta Falcons this year?
Well, I think it's look to 2021. Yeah. I think that's what right now what everyone's thinking. That's what I'm thinking. After this last game, I thought that some of the deficiencies that the Falcons had, they kind of had fixed it, overcome. We got the new coordinator, the whole little thing that had started being the transition of what the Falcons said was going to be more success. But I kind of saw a lot of what, we've been seeing all year. But I didn't see 11 sacks now.
Yeah.
I mean, I did not see 11 sacks versus the Saints at home versus Matt Ryan. Yeah. Particularly when, remember, last time we played in New Orleans, there were no sacks. The Saints had no sacks. So
right.
I was really surprised about what the Falcons looked like.
Well, let me do that for a moment before we get into everything else, including a lot of your comments on both Facebook and YouTube today. Atlanta has put a lot of resource in its offensive line. Jake Matthews is a highly paid left tackle. Mack is one of the highest paid centers. First-round picks. And obviously Lindstrom's been hurt. Could be, working his way back, but he's been hurt. McGary's been your starter. The other first-round guy, we'll have more on him later on the show and what a dismal rookie season it's actually turned out to be for McGary after initially showing some signs of promise. How do you fix an offensive line when you can't really draft more guys? You've already drafted 2 first-rounders in the last year. You can't spend more money. If anything, you need to find a way to get cheaper along the offensive line. How do you fix a group like this that's so broken, given the fact that you've already thrown so many resources towards the problem?
There's only one thing I can think of. Coach them up. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got first-rounders. And I'm not questioning the offensive line coach. All I'm saying is this. All we can look at is coach them up, and they have to improve. But I think really – I just think when looking at the new offenses, looking at the NFL, this is why I see now a little bit why people like the moving quarterback. He can move out of the pocket. Because when you look at some of these teams, they don't necessarily have great offensive lines, but they got a quarterback that has some mobility. All I can see is coach him up or help Matt Ryan get more mobility. That's the only thing I can say, because at this point you cannot draft any more offensive linemen to fit this needs. You just got to figure out a way to get some more production out of them.
It is a mess, and we'll talk to, obviously, Falcons fans about it. And listen, I think on this show, the tone that we tried to strike after the surprising win at New Orleans and following that up with the win against Carolina, as long as they were playing well, I was more than happy to kind of go along with the ride, let Falcons fans enjoy that. The tone of our comments those 2 weeks was really pretty positive. Falcons fans had a good time with that. Obviously the Saints are a huge rival. They love beating up on them. Carolina's a rival too. That was kind of a fun thing to do as a follow-up to all of that. However, that really was the aberration of what has really been a disastrous season the last couple of weeks against Tampa and against New Orleans, completely in line with the failing efforts in the games prior to that. This is just sort of who Atlanta is. So willing to kind of go along with the fun of the couple wins, but when you can't defend your own home turf any better against a bad team like Tampa and a team like New Orleans that you'd already shown you could beat, but not to have a better effort than that on Thanksgiving night, I think a lot of Falcons fans are like, who we drafting? What's the coach going to look like? Who's the GM going to be? Let's start talking about the future. And I got to tell you, Chuck, I completely understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, and it showed up, especially let's talk about coaching now.
Yeah.
When you think about the coaching, you think about what the Falcons did in this game, they didn't help McGary. They didn't need to help Matthews,
right.
You'd like to think, particularly the kind of money he's generated and the kind of player you expected him to be. But I'm watching McGary out there. He's in the ocean. They're not throwing him a life preserver, but that means they had an opportunity to help him. They didn't chip block. That's getting help from the running back. They didn't really do anything to help him. So that tells me there's some issues that came along with the scheme. I don't know why they didn't make adjustments for him as far as the offensive coordinator saying, or even DQ stepping up. But it's just those little things that make up an entire season of disappointment for the offensive line. And real quick, hold up.
Please.
Jake Matthews, Shane. You got that Matthews name on your back. You should not be getting beat like that. I mean, when I think of some of the great Falcon tackles, Bob Whitfield, Mike Ken, I'll stop right there because I can't remember anymore unless you can. But you got to have consistency from that tackle, the blind side tackle. You got to have consistency.
Danny Johnson on YouTube says, fall on your face for Chase, which is the push that I've been making on this show since we started. I give up. Draft Jalen Hurts in the 4th round if he's available. I love Matt, but he's becoming a liability. We'll do more on Matt Ryan here coming up. Let me start with the Chase Young part of this because I did think it was interesting. A website called The Ringer was doing an evaluation of the Atlanta Falcons, kind of where they stand after going from a playoff hopeful at the beginning of the season to obviously now left to focus solely on the future. And their writer made it pretty clear that he thinks that if possible, Chase Young ought to be in the Falcons' future. Here's what the writer for The Ringer said about this situation. Danny Heifetz is his name. He says, no team needs to win the Chase Young sweepstakes quite like Atlanta. The Falcons have one of the worst pass rushes in the league. Beasley and Claiborne are likely gone in March, and the Falcons have virtually no money to acquire a veteran pass rusher to replace them. Now, he goes on to say in this same piece that you're going to have probably a top 3 pick to do that. Atlanta right now, probably more only in like the top 5 range, so Atlanta would need some help from somebody winning in order to, and then keep losing in order to get in that top 3. But the writer says they're under no uncertain terms that no team needs Chase Young more than Atlanta. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased here, maybe living in Atlanta and kind of watching the Falcons more closely. But I can't think of a team that needs Chase Young more than Atlanta does. And I've said this before. You give me an offensive coaching upgrade and you give me a pass rusher like Young, I see a pathway for Atlanta to win as many as 11 games next year just with the talent it's able to bring back from the current roster. But it takes a dynamic game wrecker on the defensive side of the ball. I don't know that anyone in the draft could do that quite as well as Chase Young could, especially at the pass rush position. I think of him as relatively bust-proof, just given how good he's been. What do you make of that take on Chase Young?
Stop the presses. Let me answer something before I move forward. There is no one that is bust-proof.
Sure.
Now, we've seen bigger busts. Now, I mean, I love Chase Young. I think of Mandrich. I think of Ryan Leaf, guys that were surefire guys. So, you know what I mean? So again,
fair enough.
We got opinions. We have our different opinions. But to me, the guy's fantastic. He's tall, he's big, he's fast, and I like that he's aggressive. And let me tell you the best thing I like. He comes from a culture of pass rush success.
Yeah.
Ohio State, when you think of the Bosas, you think of all kind of different players that have came out of Ohio State. Coach Johnson at Ohio State is the number one defensive line pass rush coach in America, with Todd Bates from Clemson. I'll just throw that in there. But the culture of the guys that come out of there, and this kid can rush. He's got moves. And as it relates to the Falcons, he comes in, instantly becomes, I think, a starter. You fit him in. He's going to be a good pass rusher, right? And I'm just saying not bust-proof.
I understand.
But he comes in and he's the best pass rusher on the team. Now, there's a consolation prize for me. There's a consolation prize. If we can't get him, I would get Derek Brown from Auburn. I would get Derek Brown, and now we put him next to Grady. He's always on the nose. He's the biggest, most athletic nose guard we've seen in quite some time, and he takes up double teams, right? So it might not be as sexy for Falcon fans as a Chase Young, but you get a guy instantly. Now look at what you got. You got Grady, you got Derek Brown, and you got Tack McKinley. Now what I'm saying is Tack has earned the right where he's drafted at to have one more year. If Tack McKinley comes out next year and he lays an egg, now we got some questions about, wow, how do we fill that need? So I'm talking about those 3 guys you put on the defensive line, and that has to be your nucleus, but a lot of this is predicated. If you get Derek Brown, to me, Derek Brown is bust.
Okay.
More bust-proof than the edge guy.
Because of the size.
Instantly, Derek's going to at least stop the run.
Right.
But I think you can't go wrong with Chase Young. I don't know how we're going to do it, but I'm not sure how to get it done.
So a lot of comments coming in on this. We'll take a lot of your comments. I guess here's my take on this. I like Derek Brown as a player a lot. I've seen the way that Kevin Steele, the Auburn defensive coordinator, has used him. I've been really impressed by that. I don't think there's any doubt, at least on the best evaluation I can make, that Derek Brown makes the Falcons better. I'd even feel the same way about a guy like, say, Grant Delpit at safety, right? I think that's a guy that would make the Falcons better.
Good call.
The difference between the Delpits and the Browns of the world for me and Chase Young is, while other guys make the Falcons better, I think that Young is potentially a transformational player. He's the kind of guy that could change the entire complexion of the defense. And so I do see a gap in between Young and, like, say, Derek Brown, who I do think would be an amazing pickup for the Falcons. I see a gap between them, though, because of how transformational I think that that Young could be because of his ability to get to the quarterback. Right. Browning improves really the other 10 guys in the field because that is size to go along Grady Jarrett. It becomes a much more difficult game plan for the offensive coaches facing them. But Chase Young's potentially a transformational player.
And he is. But that's the same thing they said about Myles Garrett at Cleveland, right? Mm-hmm. He's not a he's getting 10, 12 sacks a year. Myles Garrett has averaged double-digit sacks from his entire career at Cleveland. And I think this year is kind of proven something in the National Football League. Again, I love Chase Young. I'd love to have him. But I'm when it comes to pass rushers, I have no problem with having more picks and getting more pass rushers. Because as we look, so many people vilified John Gruden and the Oakland Raiders.
Yeah.
And you know what the crazy part about it is? No one has come out. Most of the guys who came out and ripped John Gruden, they ain't saying nothing now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because look at all the guys. They end up getting Farrell from Clemson. You got this kid Max Crosby who's almost breaking records. Mm-hmm. You got Maurice Hurst that was a 4th rounder. Yeah. The Raiders have the best young defensive line in the game. And what they give up basically for this? They gave up $100 million in Khalil Mack. So if Khalil Mack was still dominating and this Oakland Raiders defensive line was sorry, then you know what I'm saying, you'd have something to say about it. So I would like to get more defensive linemen because the Falcons need more than one guy. I think sometimes, it's better in numbers than having one guy. But if the one guy becomes, Derek Thomas or Reggie White, that's different.
Sure.
But Myles Garrett, he's a great one. But he hasn't transcended taking his team to any levels yet.
All right, let's get some comments because we got some good ones coming in. Chris Spratley on the subject of the line says, we don't need to draft offensive linemen. We need someone who can coach them. He also says definitely draft the defensive tackle to replace Claiborne and Beasley. I kind of agree on the offensive line thing right now. You got to hope the guys you do have here are going to eventually become fixes. McGary's experience eventually making him a better player. Lindstrom returning to full health, kind of showing some of the promise that caused the Falcons to draft him in the first place. The veterans like Matthews and Mack being guys that you want to keep around here, figuring out what's going on at left guard, which seems to always kind of be a bit of an issue. But at this point in time, you're going to find a way to use the offensive lineman you have. You can't throw more resources, money, or draft picks at that problem, I don't believe. I
agree, but this is what I was saying while I was watching the game the other day. I was at home sitting on the couch. Matt Ryan drops back. Offensive line was getting killed. It is what it is, Brandon. But all of a sudden I see Matt was in the pocket, and a couple guys got near him, and Matt said, "Oh."
Yeah.
Man, hold up. There were times now Matt Ryan, he was looking to get sacked. His head looked like, again, he was seeing ghosts. Yeah. There were times where I would have liked to see him fight a little more. Yeah. There are times now where, the offensive line got whooped. But I will agree with one thing that Dan Quinn did say. There was a time where, Freeman got ran through by a linebacker, right? Or Hill, one of them. But the offensive line, you got to do better. But it's so frustrating now when you're watching Mahomes, you're watching Jackson, you're watching even Garoppolo, you're watching all these guys who can make a couple plays with their feet, with their legs. And I'll just say the offensive line is really one of the worst offensive lines that I think that have been here since Thomas Dimitroff has been the general manager.
That's true. You can also cite some of the running quarterbacks in the league who've kind of faltered a bit as of late. Carson Wentz at one point in time was kind of the toast of the league because of what he could do with his legs.
He can't run. Carson Wentz never got us rookie. We never got to see Carson run.
Right, but the point is that's what he was supposed to be all about, and here we are now saying, was Wentz really the answer for the Eagles anymore? So not all of these running quarterbacks necessarily pan out the way they're supposed to.
Man, Wentz is, and I'm not saying that you got to be a running quarterback to win. All I'm saying, you got to have some escapability, a little more. I would have liked to see Matt Ryan in this game take off a few times. Just go. You already know your tackle's getting whooped. You know pressure's coming. Step up, step out, because there are a few times he had the opportunity to. Now, I'm not saying become Mike Vick or Jackson. We know that's not going to happen.
Sure.
But as you look at the pocket presence, even of Tom Brady amongst last night, nothing open. He's pumping the ball. He's pumping, then he gets it out.
But if you gave me my choice, as much fun as Lamar Jackson is to watch, and Jackson, another thrilling win for the Ravens yesterday and a major statement going to San Francisco and getting a win like that. You give me my choice of him compared to some of the other young quarterbacks in the league. I think that Pat Mahomes is more likely to win a Super Bowl. I'll take Deshaun Watson is more likely to win a Super Bowl. He's still relatively, young enough in his career that he matters in a conversation like this. I'll take some of those young quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl before I'll take Lamar Jackson. As good as Baltimore looks right now and as fun as Lamar Jackson is, I don't know that Lamar is as complete of a thrower as what I've seen from Mahomes when he's been healthy. And that's working with Andy Reid, and I do get that. I think Deshaun Watson's becoming a better thrower right now. It makes me like Watson, better. Baltimore's got a great team. Jackson may be the league's MVP right now, but I'm not quite so sure you're going to run your way to a Super Bowl.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I'd take both of those other two before I would take Jackson.
Yeah.
No, and let me tell you why. No one has studied these two quarterbacks like I have. My wife has Patrick Mahomes as her fantasy quarterback, so I'm watching everything. And I have Deshaun Watson, Gainesville's finest, every week. So again, I like their ability, what they can do. They're better throwers downfield, and they also can run. Both of those guys can run, Watson and Mahomes. And I agree with you on that 100%.
Yeah.
I know. I see. Here's my thing about Jackson. This is the Mike Vick effect, because here's what everybody's saying on the national media. Well, he doesn't get hit. He hadn't got any big hits. Come on, y'all, stop. So here's what's going to happen. Mike Vick had the same thing, right? He never gets hit. Now, guess when he does get hit and gets that injury? Because I'm going to tell you, if Jackson continues to run, I've talked about this next level pass rushers now. They're going to get to him. He's going to get hurt. Here's the problem now with the Baltimore Ravens when he gets hurt. Who else you going to get to run that offense? You really think RG3 is going to run it, right? You really think so all I'm saying is this. I hope he develops as a pocket passer, because the Mike Vick experience, it was definitely changed the dynamics of the organization when he would get hurt.
We're going to have more on Matt Ryan here in a moment, but I will say this about Michael Vick, because I think about Vick sometimes when you're watching Lamar Jackson. If I'm Vick, I'm a little mad, right? Because if he had a chance to play in the league with the rules set up the way they are now, protecting quarterbacks the way they do, I think Michael Vick's career turns out way differently. What you can do to quarterbacks in like the early 2000s, so different than the way that quarterbacks are treated right now. And Lamar Jackson, that's a benefit to him. It's almost like the comparison for like the Michael Jordan era and the lack of hand checking or the presence of hand checking back then that doesn't exist kind of in the NBA right now. The guys from that previous era just had a challenge that the current players don't have to deal with. And in football, I think it's the same way. You are protected so much now. That thought of, what if I get my clock clean, that's not really in Lamar Jackson's head the way that it had to be for Michael Vick. I think the Vick career is completely different if he had a chance to play in the era in which Lamar Jackson's enjoying. I'm not saying the rules are what has allowed Jackson to have the success, but it makes it easier in comparison to the guy that he's most frequently compared to, which is Michael Vick.
Yeah, but this is what I'll say about the difference between Jackson. I agree with you 100%. The game is a little different, and Mike is well documented. He never learned how to slide. Didn't like to slide.
Right.
Remember, it was like, dude,
Terry Pendleton trying to learn everything else.
You know what I'm saying? So, but to me though, what makes Jackson a target? There's so many design runs. What did he get? Almost 16 design runs the other day. He's a running back. So to me, eventually, as much as the rules dictate you can't hit quarterbacks, he's a running back for all intents and purposes. When he runs the ball, he becomes a running back. So eventually, he's not going to be able to get out of bounds. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Now, from Mike Vick's standpoint, I'll tell you what hurt Mike Vick. Number one, when he initially started getting his run, Dan Reeves, he was in there, but Mike was still more of a runner. It was more of a running offense. Number two, the Atlanta Falcons, when they got Jim Moore, they ran the ball. This was T.J. Duckett, Warwick Dunn.
Oh, yeah.
Mike was basically, hand the ball off, but they weren't playing like.
They're leading the league in rushing.
They're not playing four wides. I think Mike Vick, if you spread him out now, I think he's going to be deadly. And hold it real quick. You talk about disrespect to Mike Vick. Jackson's having a phenomenal year, but the overall body of work has to be, looked at after this year and next year. Now, if he wins the MVP, if he wins the MVP this year, which it looks like to me, his career right now is going to trump Michael Vick instantly because he's won the MVP, no matter what Michael Vick ever
I think that's really interesting. The other thing, too, and I promise we'll get back to the topic at hand after this, Greg Roman, the Ravens offensive coordinator, let's start talking about lists of guys who ought to be getting long looks to be a head coach. Greg Roman is that guy for me because of what he's been able to do with the Baltimore offense this year. Also, couple this with the fact that he helped get San Francisco to a Super Bowl, at least appearance in the Super Bowl. And what a lot of people forget is Jim Harbaugh has really struggled at Michigan. You go back and see the success that he enjoyed at Stanford when he was working with Andrew Luck, things like that. His offensive coordinator, also Greg Roman.
Oh, really?
Roman has been a guy that's had a lot of success in a lot of different places. If you're thinking about up-and-coming coach in the National Football League, Greg Roman would be on my short list for guys you really got to be giving a close look to see about being a head coach.
Lincoln, you had a choice, Lincoln or Greg Roman.
I'm probably still
Lincoln Riley.
I'm probably still stinking for Lincoln, but Greg Roman, I see what you're doing there. I got my eye on what he's doing up there in Baltimore right now.
Yeah, I like it. And, think about, give a lot of credit to Baltimore, the transition from Harbaugh having Joe Flacco, one of the statues of the National Football League. He got a Super Bowl, but he basically became a statue as a quarterback. They drafted this young kid, got rid of a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Yeah. And a lot of controversy about it. And look what's happened. Give the Ravens a lot of credit scouting. And Ozzie Newsome, I think that was his last draft pick. Yeah. Hall of Fame football player and general manager.
That's a good point.
Give a lot of credit to the Ravens and what they did do. But Roman, I know he's on your short. I already know your list is getting longer.
My list is getting longer and longer.
Brad, you just added number 2 to your list. I love it. You just added. You didn't think I felt that. You just added number 2 to your list.
That's right. All right, so we're going to take a lot of comments. Folks want to talk about Matt Ryan. So let me do this. Let me remind you who we are, what we're doing, and then we'll kind of give you what one of the national guys have said about Ryan, the Falcons' future with him here in a moment. It's Chuck Smith, the former Atlanta Falcon. My name is Brandon Adams. Thanks for being here on AJC, Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite, the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons. It tastes great, and it's just 96 calories. If you're getting together to watch the Falcons here this weekend, it's a great choice for your pregame party, your tailgate, or anything else. All right, let me show you the ringer guy here one more time, kind of evaluating the situation with the Falcons, saying, hey, got to draft Chase Young if you can, work your way up to a top 3 pick in order to be able to do that, or you could go in a completely different direction. Here was something kind of interesting from the ringer on that. Danny Heifetz, once again, the guy's name. He says, the Falcons need so many players that it'd be wise to acquire multiple picks and target some defenders. He means like trade back. Grant Delpit comes to mind, Christian Fulton. He says also the Falcons are looking for a new direction. Now listen to this. They could take one of those quarterbacks themselves. Yes, they have Matt Ryan, but this season showed how valuable having a second quarterback is. He's obviously, I think, referencing Teddy Bridgewater and guys like that who've come in and helped their teams win. The writer says teams don't reach the top 5 in the draft often, and Atlanta may not get a better chance to replace Ryan for years. That's Danny Heifetz for the ringer saying, if you don't get the Chase Young sweepstakes win, then maybe it's time to start thinking about the replacement for Matt Ryan and drafting him. This is the first I've heard anybody kind of in the national media suggest it could even be a possibility. I'm not quite so sure that I think it is. But what do you think about the possibility that Atlanta might look to move on from Matt Ryan and have a second quarterback behind him, essentially putting, I don't know, $50 or $60 million towards a quarterback? That's expensive. What do you think about this?
2 weeks ago, I would have probably said no.
Yeah.
But as I'm seeing the evolution of this Falcons quarterback situation, I would think about getting a quarterback if it's one of those top guys, the kid from Oregon, or I don't know, or maybe I'm not sure. But I think depending who the guy is, if he's a guy that you know that's special, somewhat, if you evaluate him as special, yeah, I would take him. But here's what I think. I would like to see the Falcons, if they don't get Chase Young or Derek Brown, and even let's just look at this from a Chase Young standpoint. If I can't get Chase Young, I'm getting more picks and dropping back. Because I just believe it. I really believe the Falcons can fill a few needs. We still need a safety. You know what I mean? We still, maybe in the second, third round, we get a running back. You understand what I'm saying? So I just think we need, where this team is built, I think we just need to get more picks. So I wouldn't mind seeing them get someone besides Matt Ryan, the backup Matt Ryan. But I would trade out there if I don't get Chase Young, get multiple draft picks, throw them towards getting number 1. Know what else I would get? Now, this is what I would get.
Yeah.
I'm getting me another wide receiver if I can in the second.
Is that right?
I want somebody to replace Julio Jones. I've seen his injuries, and I need a complimentary for Ridley. I would get defensive backs out, and also matter of fact, I can't even name them all who I would get. So right now, I would get a safety, I get a corner.
No, I think it's a good point.
I mean, it's too many, but I would definitely get multiple picks.
And the one thing that I've said a lot on the show is that the biggest problem the Falcons have faced is they have kind of created this sort of trade up and pay up culture. They're trading up to get picks all the time, players all the time. When you do that, you sacrifice draft picks over the long haul. And if you want to look at the best organizations, they're not the teams that necessarily get the draft picks the most often, because the batting average for most teams is going to be about the same. The best organizations just draft the most players. And over the course of the long haul, if you draft a larger number of players, your chances of succeeding on a good number of those is just going to be better. Falcons have been pay up, and trade up, where they're constantly giving free agent dollars to guys, lifetime contracts, things like that, constantly trading up. A trade back, to me, would be a great signal of, in the future, no matter who it is that's doing the drafting, who it is that's doing the decision-making, that Atlanta's trying to break the bad cycle that it's been on. However, to kind of drill down on the Matt Ryan point for another moment, the writer here says there'll never be a better chance to replace Matt Ryan than drafting the top 5 right now. I don't believe that's true. I mean, take Jake Fromm out of it for a moment, whatever he ends up being, if it's a part of the 2020 draft, the 2021 draft. Let's just use Herbert, the Oregon quarterback, and Tua Tagovailoa, the Alabama quarterback, for the 2020 draft in comparison to what might be there for 2021, Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. If Ryan really does falter in 2020, big cap number, he's not any better then than he is now, if the offense is not any better, hopefully with new leadership, than it is right now, I'd much rather have a top 5 pick next year with a chance to draft a Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields than I would this year drafting a Tua Tagovailoa or Justin Herbert. I believe I like both Lawrence and Fields better than I like Tua because of his health, the fact that this is a guy that just has a hard time staying healthy, because I'm just not quite so sure about Herbert one way or another.
So you're going to have the Falcons next year also win 2 or 3 games. So we're gonna win 3 games.
If Ryan's not good, they're only gonna win 2 or 3. I mean,
I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying, so that means the Falcons got to be bad this year and next year. So if you're gonna be bad next year too, all these guys that we talk about that are in this Falcons window that are making them a championship team, they ain't gonna be able to keep them because they would have had catastrophic years for this to happen.
I think catastrophic's not too strong a word to use. If Atlanta next year, I'm talking about if we fast forward 365 days from right now, if we're not talking about, wow, Atlanta really figured some stuff out, then there's not one single part of this organization that is likely to be here for the long haul, right? I mean, at some point in time, you're talking about kind of rebooting the whole thing. This is why, and listen, we're going to get a lot of comments, I promise. But if you read the comments the last few weeks in the show, they're kind of negative towards Ryan. And I get that, because when you've had a bad season, coach, GM, owner, quarterback, no one should be free from criticism. But if you're a Falcons fan who really wants what's best for this team, I think you've got to hitch your wagon here to Matt Ryan. I don't think you can afford to replace him right now. And if you're not going to replace him right now, you need for him to be good next year. And if he's not, then I'll talk to you about Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields 365 days from right now.
So we're wasting all the best of Julio.
You are absolutely
Brady's
wasting.
in his prime.
Absolutely
Deion
wasting.
Jones.
Chuck, it's the worst part about all this. You're wasting. I mean, Julio Jones is a Hall of Famer, and you're just. I mean, you might as well be lighting those years on fire. You know, Matt Ryan's really the same way, because the honest truth is, I still think Ryan is better than some of our audience does. I think he's been hurt by a relic of an offensive scheme. I think he's been hurt by an offensive line that can't seem to improve. I think that he's been hurt by the complete absence of a running game. I think there are a lot of things that would make Ryan a better quarterback. I think he's better than some of the people who watch us seem to think he is. So if you're talking about wasting primes, you got to throw Ryan's prime in with a lot of others, because there'd be no shortage of teams that want Matt Ryan if the Falcons made him available.
You know, and when you look, this is how the draft kind of works when you come to making the right picks. So the Falcons drafted in the 3rd round, and I don't know his name, so the 3rd round defensive end they got out of Charleston, right?
Sure.
So the Falcons drafted the 3rd rounder out of Charleston, if I'm correct. But then you go and look at the kid Winovich from Michigan, killing it in New England, rolling in New England. You know, I mean, just a start on arguably the best defense in the league. Okay, the guy we got, he hadn't played. Okay, then you go look again at a guy who probably makes the Pro Bowl in his first year, Max Crosby from Eastern Michigan. You know what I mean? Starts for the Raiders. And just look at where we are. You know, we get a guy, again, it comes down to finding and developing those guys, but finding them is the number one thing. Because these guys are first-year starters. Yeah. But then it frustrates me a little bit again now. We already know the story of Vic Beasley, and it's really a sad story, right? Especially when you're big, fast, strong, and you know you got all the true intangibles, except the one. Right. And then you bring in Tack McKinley, who has a gorilla emoji. That's his name. You know, everybody got the gorilla emoji. I'm that dude. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah. But I tell you, the frustrating part for me with Tack McKinley, and I love his attitude, but disappointing that he hasn't developed a move. He bull rushes every play. So is it Tack or is it coaching? I don't know, but I know that every guy in the league, for the most part, that gets a lot of sacks, it starts at coaching. So there's a philosophy that they talk about in coaching. You either coaching it wrong or letting them do it. Yeah. So one of the two, you got to figure it
That's
out.
great. That's a great saying. Great saying. All right, it's AJC Falcons News now. That's Chuck Smith. I'm Brandon Adams. I promise I had a lot of your comments here to come. Before that, real quick, though, don't forget, if you want to get the best coverage of the Falcons available anywhere, I think the best way to do that is by becoming an AJC subscriber. And as a special thank you, when you do become a subscriber, you get this officially branded Falcons cooler. The website is subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now. That's subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now. That'll get you in touch with a whole bunch of choices, whether it's like the 7-day home delivery that you want, or you just want the daily e-paper sent to your device, your phone, your laptop, whatever else. You want a combination of the two, including a Sunday print sent right there to your house. Whichever option you choose, as a special thank you, you get this Falcons cooler as a way of saying, we appreciate you being an AJC subscriber, and we hope you'll enjoy the in-depth Falcons coverage you get by being an AJC subscriber. And of course, the Falcons are a proud partner of us here at the AJC, and we're happy to share this Falcons cooler with you. So go to the website, subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now. And now I'm going to shut up, let some of y'all talk here for a little bit, and we will find out what you want to say. Chris Webb says Ryan is a good quarterback. Falcons haven't had an offensive line in about 5 years. Same for the running game. And it is true. It's hard not to think back to Ryan in 2016 when the line's playing better, the scheme's working better. I mean, that to me is the real Matt Ryan. Mm-hmm. And what we've seen since then is just a poor use of his skill set.
Well, I agree with you on that. And I mean, Matt Ryan has done a lot with a little, okay?
Yeah.
But those years, Freeman was a good runner, right? Remember this, Freeman was as good as it gets, and then the next year he gets his big contract.
Yeah.
You had Tevin Coleman, right? So you had an offensive line, you had a scheme that were doing really well. But now you look at him, and being fair to it, I just did say, oh, yeah, I'd like to see Matt run a little bit more. But, man, you have no options, really. Yeah. I mean, if they know you're going to throw every time, it's tough. I understand, man. It's almost puzzling. There's so many intangibles that we talk about that aren't just from this year. We're looking back to last year and the year before that. So we're puzzled because we got basically better personnel, but not as good results.
Blake Robinson says Julio's getting up there in age, and injuries are really going to start adding up and taking their toll on Julio's body. The contract wasn't a good one because of that factor. And Blake, unfortunately, that does kind of hang as a dark cloud over all of this. You know, in one of the most miserable Falcon seasons that anyone's had to endure, it started off with a big-time concession to Julio, kind of the golden parachute, gold watch type contract for him. There couldn't be two things more opposed to each other. The symbolism of making Julio kind of a Falcon for life, while the results on field are pretty wretched. Now, Julio's not to blame for that, but the money you're giving him is certainly money that can't be used anywhere else now.
I agree with you. I mean, I think that was somewhat of a gentleman's agreement.
Yeah.
Hey, you're a great Falcon. You're a Hall of Famer. We're going to take care of you, even though we know you might not be able to give us 3 years. You won't finish out the contract or probably even finish half of it. It is what it is. I mean, Julio Jones doesn't play as much as I would like to see him play. I think also, let me tell you something that I'd like to see improve with Julio Jones if there is something. When he does get nicked up, his demeanor, his body language is always like, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So I just see it, and I think we've all seen it, that Julio's been nicked up, and I'm hearing too much. He's a war daddy.
Yeah.
He's tough. He's different. We all know all those different things. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear Julio's, out there catching 4 or 5 touchdowns a game. But, it is what it is. He's earned it because him and his agent, you hire a good agent to get you the money. He got him the money.
Nicole Howard says Thomas Dimitroff and Matt Ryan have been here for over a decade. It's time to make a change. And the Dimitroff thing we'll kind of get to in a moment. As far as the Ryan topic we've kind of been on, I get the restlessness, right? I get the fact that last couple of seasons have looked kind of the same, and the body language of a quarterback is getting beat up all over the place. It's just kind of not good. You and I were, talking about the Shy Tuttle thing from Thursday night. I mean, when the prevailing image of Ryan this season is Tuttle just kind of shoving him aside and keeping on going, I realize that's not a great look for Ryan right now. And in a year that's bad, the franchise quarterback shouldn't be impervious to criticism any more than the coach and the GM should be. I do get all of that. However, while I understand the restlessness, I can't support the impatience. I can't support it's time to give up on Ryan. For me, that's still too soon. I believe if even in a fictitious world, if you put Ryan out there in the open market, you got no shortage of teams that would be jumping at the chance to bring him in. I think Chicago would be the first team there, and I think that there'd be a lot of others as well. Potentially 2 of the teams in your division, Carolina and Tampa, might take a long look at that too, with all due respect to Jameis Winston down there with the Bucs right now. But there'd be no shortage of teams looking at Matt Ryan if the Falcons made him available, and that ought to tell you something.
No, I agree with you 100%. And look, think about this. Why do you think Baltimore got Jackson? Because they were looking for a quarterback. They struggled, right?
Yeah.
So, when you look at the climate right now, the quarterbacks in the NFL, the Falcons are in no position to get rid of Matt Ryan. They could be in position now to get a second-round quarterback or late first rounder.
Right.
I ain't got a problem with that. But right now, for the Falcons to win a Super Bowl, even to get back into the mix, you got to figure out all the stuff around Matt Ryan. And then you got to keep you got to get the defense getting some turnovers. I mean, here's in all fairness to Matt Ryan, when the last time you seen the Falcons get a fumble for a touchdown? When you seen them get an interception?
Yeah.
So all the little things that will help an offense that's struggling, Matt Ryan doesn't have that. And that's a challenge.
Let me get some YouTube comments. Cody Ball says this team has no identity. Unfortunately, right now that kind of seems true. This is kind of a rudderless ship without the identity. I still think Ryan throwing to Julio and Calvin Ridley, who I think is spectacular. I think that Ridley is one of the really fun skill players in this league right now. That's your nucleus. It's Ryan throwing to those receivers. And you'll add Austin Hooper, who I believe the Falcons are going to find a way to bring back next year, top fantasy tight end in the NFL. That's your nucleus. It's Ryan and those pass-catching weapons. And you've got to do whatever you need to do with your coaching staff to make sure that remains true. If Cody says the Falcons have no identity and a bunch of people in the YouTube comment section are like, yeah, Cody, I agree with you, that means the Falcons aren't using their highest paid weapons very well.
No, they're not. And to me, that starts with the scheme. The scheme on offense is so vanilla. I mean, it seems easy to figure out. Because everybody's been saying it's easy to figure out, right? Houston Texans said, we knew they were going to be in cover 2. We're going to be here. So Fuller catches a big-time pass again, and Deshaun Watson, they beat us. I mean, coaches, listen, ultimately when you're a coach, I've been there, and listen, let me just tell you what I was told. No matter what happens, you are responsible for your unit. If your unit doesn't do good, it's your responsibility. So coaches you're responsible to get your guys to play not only for you, to play for one another.
Yeah.
So the coaches got to look at themselves, and we don't talk about that enough. We really don't.
Right.
The coaches got to look at themselves also and see how can I make them better.
AR says on YouTube, Cutter has zero clue how to use the multitude of weapons the Falcons have, and really that's kind of echoed by another comment here on YouTube as well from. Actually, it was AR there as well. Kind of going back to some of the stuff that was an issue for Cutter the last time he was here in his stint with the Atlanta Falcons. And honestly, for as much attention as Raheem Morris moving from offense to defense and additional responsibilities for Jeff Ulbrich and lessened responsibilities for Dan Quinn, I think very quietly the fact that the Falcons offense has had no running game to speak of, poor protection from Matt Ryan all season long, and just days in which just sputtering in terms of trying to score points. I think the Falcons' offensive issues have been just as significant as what's going on defensively. And frankly, when you think about problems for 2020, to me it's even worse because of how expensive the Falcons' offense is.
Let me break this down. We're talking about how the Falcons' offense is not creative, right?
Yeah.
It's not as productive. Let me just tell you this. Let me just break this down how I see it when it comes to excitement and creativity.
Yeah.
The Falcons' offense is kind of like a picnic. You know what I mean? Just you go there, it's just, same old, same old. You don't have any much expectations because we've done it over and over. Now, the Baltimore offense, you got the Falcons are a picnic. The Baltimore Ravens offense is like Freaknik.
Yeah.
It is wild. It is creative. It is
Big
a party.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just telling you, the Falcons are a picnic. Listen, man, the Baltimore Ravens, it's Freaknik. I mean, it is exciting. It's wild. It's creative things going. It is so crazy. You like, man, y'all just get off the field, get up out of here, man. Just have a good time. The Falcons just kind of at the picnic, chilling,
I don't mind telling you, my job dictates that I watch the Falcons when they're on at 1 p.m., but if I'm just a regular fan, can kind of just choose which is the more entertaining game, give me a choice watching the Ravens right now, watching the Falcons, there's no doubt about that. I feel the same way about, there are a lot of teams in the NFL that I frankly feel that way about.
The Niners?
You want to bring them? Yeah, there are just a lot of teams right now that are a lot more fun to watch than Atlanta is. It's just definitely true. Devin McConnell says, and I'm actually curious to get your thought on this. He says, we have too much talent on both sides of the ball. So who's to blame, the coach or the players? The reason why I ask you about this, Chuck, is one of the things you're fond of saying, sometimes it's on the air, sometimes it's off. Did we overrate the talent, or is this whatever? I mean, you've kind of said that a lot. So would you mind speaking to Devin here, who says, we have too much talent to be this bad, so who's to blame? What do you make of that? How would you respond to that?
I would say some of the players we have overrated, right? I think some of the players we've overrated, and that goes to guys that came out of college. Let me just use Vic Beasley, and I know we go back to that. Vic Beasley is a true hybrid that really has no position. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. He doesn't fit in as a backer because he's not mobile enough. He's fast, straight line, but he's not big enough to play down, okay?
Yeah.
Tack McKinley, in college, he was a guy who was an effort guy. He doesn't come in running a 4-2. There's no, nothing super special about him. Jake Matthews, we took him too high. When you get Jake Matthews, what was he, number 7?
Yeah, high pick.
Number 7, he was a high pick. And so I think we over-evaluated some of their guys, but then you under-evaluate guys like a Grady. I mean, you get Grady, he becomes better than your first-round pick. That's not really supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. Deion Jones, he's been hit or miss. But I just think that the Falcons have over-evaluated, ultimately, the defensive coordinator situation. I think from Richard Smith. I think from Marquand Manuel. And I think the over-evaluation of the talent from Dan Quinn to think that the talent was so good that he could be part-time and help bring them to another level. Mm-hmm. So I think the evaluation, not only are we over-evaluating what we saw as players, I think the most catastrophic thing that happened this year to the Falcons was the over-evaluation from the coach, thinking that I can become a coordinator, a head coach, and a D-line coach.
Okay.
I think he over-evaluated his own talent, which no one can do that, in my opinion.
But what would you say, though, because if I had to go back and do it all over again, I'm not sure I would have thought differently about Atlanta at the start of the season than I did. A team that I thought had a chance to really make a significant push for the playoffs. When you see them win at New Orleans, only the best teams in the NFL win at New Orleans, right?
Right.
When you see them go on the road and win at Carolina the following week, that's a pretty significant statement. To me, the biggest indictment of Quinn as a coach is the fact that for 2 weeks this season, they showed us how good they could be. And if you want to say, well, New Orleans was just sleepwalking and overlooking Atlanta, there's a chance that's true. But when the Falcons maintained that for 2 weeks in a row, that's a statement of there is a threshold of possibility. We just don't feel like getting there most of the weeks.
Right.
So even though I think Thomas Dimitroff shares a lot of the blame for what's going on here, in terms of talent to be better than they have been on the field, absolutely. If you can do it for 2 weeks, you got to be able to do it for 10.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me see. Let me go back and understand this. Looking at where the Falcons are with the talent. So I'm one of those people also that said, man, this Falcons team, I was drinking the Kool-Aid, man. They got the best talent in the league. Everybody says, last year before the season, they said we had the most talent.
Yeah.
A couple people said that. But I'm one of those people, if you ain't doing it, how do we give you credit for something that you ain't doing?
Right.
So I'm giving you credit as you got all this talent, but you're not consistent and you're not making plays. So at this point, we can't keep saying that. Mm-hmm. No one, in my opinion, can say it with a straight face that we got so much talent. Do we?
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
What is Isaiah Oliver doing to show me? What is Tack, Vic, you know what I mean? Grady speaks for himself. What you know what I'm saying? So when we look at the guys' offensive line, we're all drinking the Kool-Aid because the propaganda that we've been given is that just because you're a first-round pick or you're one of our picks that you're good.
Yeah.
So I'm going by what I see on the field. We have over-evaluated the talent now until they start reaching their potential, and me having to be me basically being the only. I'm sorry, what's I'm going to say? And us always saying, well, dang, the defense sucks, but Grady did good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's unbelievable. And give Grady is one of he's going to make the Pro Bowl.
He's a pro.
But look at what we're saying. For 2 years straight, matter of fact, for Desmond Trufant, we've been saying that he can't catch for 6, 7 years, right?
Yeah.
He can't catch.
Yeah.
Right? So he made a couple plays now, but right now, if you evaluate Desmond Trufant, has his performance measured up to where he was drafted? Is he, let's go back. Matter of fact, go back. All these guys that we're talking about that are struggling, go back and right now, go on Twitter right now, go back and see what we said about them the day they were drafted.
Yeah.
The expectations were way higher for all those guys. So I really think you are who you are and you are with what you do on the field. You don't get credit from me because you're supposed to be better. You are who you are.
No, I think that's fair. That's Chuck Smith. I'm Brandon Adams. It's AJC. Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite, the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons. It tastes great, and it is just 96 calories. All right, let me show you this from Mark Bradley in the AJC recently. kind of laying it out how he feels the rest of this is going to go for Atlanta, and he seems to think that some change is definitely on the horizon. Here is Bradley from the AJC. I'll read you a couple sentences here. He says, Dan Quinn will be fired soon. It serves no purpose to do it tomorrow, anytime before the NFL's Black Monday, which is the day after the final regular season game of the season, but it's coming. A coach can't fire his 3 coordinators 1 December and keep his job if his team's playing for pride 11 months later. He goes on to say, what will happen is a coaching search, and surely a GM search as well. This makes back-to-back losing seasons for a team that reached the Super Bowl 3 years ago and made the playoffs a year later. This is a team with many high-salary players, and he goes on to list a lot of those, but it's a bad team. Somebody must answer for that. I doubt Arthur M. Blank has a hankering to fire himself. That's Mark Bradley from the AJC. You can read the full column at ajc.com. So here's my take on this. There's not a single Falcon fan out there that doesn't hope what Bradley writes is true. I believe it's essentially unanimous. Falcons fans want total house cleaning from the GM to the coach all the way down. They want a completely fresh start. Bradley, with his words, seems to be sure it's going to happen. He's probably more sure about that than I am. I am steadfast in the belief that it needs to happen, but my confidence that Blank's going to do the right thing here has admittedly wavered a bit over the last couple of weeks because he didn't pull the trigger when he had a chance to a couple of weeks ago, and now I can't be 100% sure. I think that Bradley makes a convincing case why it needs to happen. He seems sure that it will. I don't know that I'm quite that sure. Are you?
No, I'm not quite that sure. I just read what Arthur says and, the things that how the climate is now. But I think the way things are going, because remember, Arthur is in the entertainment business.
Yeah.
You want to win, but you also got to do what? You got to entertain. You got to put a great product on the field. So I think from a sponsor standpoint to winning, all the different things that go around it, and there's no one that would ever question the firing due to where, the team is right now. So I think from Arthur Blank's standpoint, there is no lose in the situation.
Yeah.
There's no way to lose, so you're going to win. Your sponsors are going to be happy. Your fans are going to be happy. You get a chance to bring someone in new. I think you get a fresh new start. And here's the best thing about it. You still got your core guys. So you bring in the coach now. You don't really lose anything.
Sure.
But you actually give your team an identity and probably a better chance to win because everybody has a fresh new start, including Arthur Blank.
Boy, I hope that's true. I mean, I think that you have to have a very real conversation about Mr. Blank and his legacy. And y'all have heard me say this before. I'm in Atlanta my entire life. And comparing Blank to other ownership groups or owners of the professional sports teams in Atlanta the last few years, I'm talking about the last couple decades, you can make a case that Blank has been really the gold standard compared to the faceless Braves ownership,
the Spirit,
the once dysfunctional Hawks ownership and former Thrashers ownership. You can make a case that Blank has outshined, whatever the right word is, sort of outperformed all of those in terms of an ownership. He seemingly has always been kind of a forward-thinking owner who cares about the fans. Is that still who he is? Is this a guy who's still in touch with the average fan? Or did Blank decide his Falcons legacy ended the moment Mercedes-Benz Stadium was built? Does he want to write more chapters for his legacy beyond the Mercedes-Benz Stadium being built? Is he still a pro football owner, or has he decided it's more fun to be a soccer owner? Because I think those are big, big issues for him to face. If he's the same owner that he's always been, then he rolls up his sleeves and he does what's right, and he drops Quinn and he drops Dimitroff and he brings in new leadership faces for this organization. But he had a chance to do that a couple of weeks ago and he chose not to. At the time, the logic and the reasoning at least made some sense of it. We got our division games to come. Yet almost no Falcon fan believed the end results of the season would end up being any different. And come to find out, the average ticket-buying fan was right in this case, and Mr. Blank, as it turns out, was probably wrong. So I think that's Blank who's really in the spotlight here this offseason. What do you want this chapter of your Falcons legacy to turn out to be? Do you want to do the right thing, the hard thing, and say no to continuity? Or do you take the easy way here and bringing back Quinn and making some sort of narrative about how they're going to recapture the magic of 2016? I'm just thinking that's going to fall on deaf ears.
Well, I think not only do you have to look at that, and I agree with you when we're talking about Dan Quinn, and I hear you when you don't have as much of the trust as Arthur Blank. I don't think the fan base does either. And I think when you look at Arthur Blank, you got to look at the entire book of work. Let's take Thomas Dimitroff out of this. You got to look at the Jim Moore situation. You got to look at all the things that happened with him. You got to look at Bobby Petrino.
Yeah.
So, and think about what we got going now. Think of some of the things that have happened to the Falcons. Let me tell you the single biggest black eye as far as the Falcons ever. And I know you're going to say, 28-3, and people are going to think 28-3.
Yeah.
It wasn't 28-3. It was your owner on the sideline dancing at halftime of 28-3 or coming down on the sideline. So to me, that entire situation gets deeper because of that, right? And now I don't think fans look at Arthur Blank. I mean, he's a great guy, and I think he is one of the best owners in the league. But no, he's not the new trophy. He's not the new car in the garage where everybody's like, oh man, it's perfect. Those days are gone. And the only way Arthur Blank's going to ultimately have a legacy is win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The legacy ain't building no big stadium.
Yeah.
Look at Jerry Jones. He got 3 of them. He got the beautiful stadium. His legacy, nobody even talks about that anymore. And so we don't have one. But that 28-3, as much as I know y'all hate this to hear it, that listen, and I'll finish up with this.
Please,
on
by
that.
all means.
I'll finish up with that.
By all means.
For years, with the Falcons were terrible. I was on some good teams. I was on more bad teams, right?
Yeah.
There were bad teams in the 70s, bad teams in the 80s. You know, everybody were the same old Falcons, right? Arthur Blank built an entire propaganda about we're not them, right? Remember when Arthur took over the team, we're going to get back-to-back winning teams. We're not the old Falcons.
Yeah.
But so you go years, you start having a few things happen. The Falcons have success. You get Matt Ryan, Mike Vick had a little bit of success. Then you get 28-3. You literally knock back 30 years of negativity. No one even talks about that anymore. So the legacy right now of the Falcons is carried. That weight is not going anywhere. So to me, the reason I'm saying this, you set yourself up for failure when you built yourself as we're not them. Now, in that one game, literally that took place of every negative loss, whether it's right or wrong, ever. So to me, when it comes to Arthur Blank and all the things that come along with it, you carry that weight just like Shanahan, just like Dan Quinn, just like the players, because it's unfortunate, but it did happen, and that's part of his legacy.
So here's what I'll say about Blank being on the sidelines. I've actually always really liked that, because even when it seemed kind of out of place, because to me this was an example of him being accessible. You knew where to find him. He wasn't off in Colorado somewhere the way the Braves ownership is. It's not 50 different people the way the Hawks ownership was for a long time. This is one guy in charge of it all. It's almost like a throwback to the Ted Turner era in Atlanta sports, to see Blank down there on the sideline. I guess my question though is he still as attentive to the desires of his fans as he once was? I like the idea that Blank has always been a willing face of the organization. The buck stops with him, and he's never really, given any reason to doubt that. But is he still as attentive to the Falcons fans as he once was? Some of the events of the last few months caused me to wonder if that's really true, especially the way it's kind of compounded in the absence of not getting that Lombardi trophy that it seemed like the Falcons were so close to getting.
Well, I definitely think Arthur Blank is attentive. It's his team. He did make a promise, and I really believe one day the Falcons will have a Super Bowl, and we will be on Peachtree celebrating the parade.
There you go.
So I do think Arthur Blank is attentive, but I still don't like Arthur Blank coming on the sideline before the game is settled. I'm good with Arthur, and I'm not. This ain't no regular game.
Understand.
What happened in the Super Bowl is well documented.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's different. It's the Super Bowl. I'm okay with you, but I'm gonna tell you this for real. I never liked Tom Benson coming on there with the old Saints owner.
Parasol thing,
with the umbrella. So to me, there's a certain kind of way I want to see you handle yourself. I don't need you twerking, or not twerking,
right?
But I don't need you whatever, my son, what I'm saying,
right,
tick-tocking.
Sure.
I'm good. So it's your team. You got the prerogative to do it.
I understand.
But for God's sake, when I saw that at the Super Bowl, that was a bad look.
It's AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. It's Chuck Smith. I'm Brandon Adams. And I'm going to show you a number here, and this is not great, but I'm going to give you, hopefully, a solution for how it can get better. Peter King, doing his Football Morning in America column for Pro Football Talk, gives us a number on Falcons right tackle Caleb McGarry that's frankly not very good. Let me show you this from Peter King, and you tell me, how does it get better from here? Peter writes, it was a disastrous night on Thanksgiving for the right tackle of the future, Caleb McGarry, so they thought, against Cam Jordan of the Saints. Jordan beat McGarry, a first-round rookie from Washington, for 3 of his 4 sacks. McGarry allowed punching bag Matt Ryan to get hit 4 more times in a 26-18 Atlanta loss that wasn't nearly as close. For the season, listen to this, McGarry's allowed 11 sacks, more than any tackle in football. Per Pro Football Focus, 11 quarterback hits, which is also the second most in the league. So that is measurably an awful season for McGarry, but he is only a rookie. You're a guy that used to beat up on offensive tackles all the time. Give me the other side of this if there is one. room for improvement? I mean, hope to get better on the field a lot, but statistically just letting your quarterback just get manhandled. If you're a Falcons fan, how do you process that from Gary?
You process he's a rookie. There's no other way to put it. He's starting his rookie year. You know how hard it is to be a starter in the NFL? Just 6 months ago, he was competing in the Senior Bowl trying to get drafted.
Yeah.
Last year, he was at Washington with the Huskies trying to go against some sorry defensive ends from USC who couldn't play. Mm-hmm. So he's a rookie. I think he'll be better. He's got a tough mindset. And, this is your first time on the job. You're learning. Mm-hmm. I don't think this is a situation where he's going to go in the tank. But I would say this, again, last game, you got Cam Jordan screaming off the corner. Whose fault was it that y'all didn't chip or help him with a double team?
Okay.
Falcons offensive coordinator, that is your absolute responsibility to help Caleb McGarry. So, Peter King, you can throw that all you want. It's a cute, sensationalistic kind of number, but some of these sacks are also on the offensive line. Let me just tell you this also, too, from a guy who was a pass rusher. Man, are you kidding me? I done seen so many bullets being shot at Matt Ryan. We all would get collateral hits on this because of what? So there are plays where Caleb McGarry, I have watched, I'm like, okay, wow, Jake Matthews got beat by Barrett from Tampa. So he got beat, Jake, and guess what? Matt was holding the ball, and he flushed up on JPP. This is in because I was like, when is JPP going to get a sack? Mm-hmm. So JPP steps with Tampa. Okay. JPP steps up, and who gets the sack? So that's on McGarry.
Yeah.
Again, it's hard for me to evaluate McGarry when this offensive line is absolutely terrible and it's a disaster. So McGarry is just part of a disaster, but he ain't the only one. So Peter King, that's a cute little stat, but you got to go deeper and look at how everything affects that offensive line position, and you can't. There's no way to really do that.
So let me make a comparison with other sports for a moment. I'm not a big hockey fan, but there's this thought of you put a goalie back there, he gives up too many goals, it gets in his head.
I know what you're going to say.
Or like in baseball, you bring in a relief pitcher that's too young, he gives up a lot of home runs, all of a sudden he's afraid to throw the ball over the plate anymore. I don't know if that's true or not. I just kind of heard that stuff. As a rookie, is there a thing of you get it in your head too much if you've got too many Cam Jordans blowing past you?
You can. But I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, guys, he's been playing this game, playing ball for a long time. He'll learn. He's going to be a good player. But you also, again, he's not going against some scrubs.
Yeah.
He's going against Pro Bowlers.
Yeah.
So I think not. I mean, again, it could happen. I'm not saying it can't because you're right. Everything you're saying, Brandon, is right. But I just think that in this situation, I've kind of got to see the guy, watch the guy. I thought he was having a solid first half of the season. But right now, in simple terms, like they say growing up in Athens, Georgia, he got towed up the last game with no help.
Yeah, not good.
No help.
Something that is good, though, is this officially branded Falcons cooler. When you become an AJC subscriber, go to subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News now. Choose from one of the options. The daily e-paper sent right to your device. E-paper plus Sunday home delivery. Everybody loves the Sunday paper. Or 7 days a week sent right to your home. And the e-paper included. Lots of different options. Subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News now. That is the best way to become an AJC subscriber. Get all the inside information on the Atlanta Falcons. And, of course, the AJC, proud partners of the Atlanta Falcons. This Falcons branded cooler can be your gift as a special thank you when you become an AJC subscriber. Chuck's got a really cool thing he's going to show us here in a couple of minutes. Before we get to that, though, and kind of celebrate some great Falcons history, let's briefly look ahead to the game against the Panthers on Sunday. Is Carolina going to come out in Atlanta as fired up to get revenge as New Orleans did this past Thursday?
No.
They're just not as good?
I mean, I think they're going to play. I think Allen, he's trying to prove himself and have an opportunity to be Cam's replacement. Mm-hmm. But I just think they're going to play. I think the rivalry thing comes in, but also dude's playing for money. I mean, as much as we talk about pride, cats ain't really saying, man, I'm trying to get paid. You got guys with incentives that are coming up. Yeah. You got guys that are trying to get the 10 sacks, or you got a running back that's trying to get 1,000 yards. So it's about pride, but it's the NFL. The guys ain't going to say it. It's about the Benjamins. These dudes trying to get paid because there are reasons things that you got to do to get your money. So at this point, it's about stats and it's about the bag. Mm-hmm. You get your stats, you get the bag.
Right. And some of these guys are going to hope that bag keeps coming 17 times over the course of the season, too.
And also, you got guys that we're still evaluating. Like Q and them said they're going to start playing young guys. Yeah. So if I'm evaluating the guy, I'm looking at true font, where are we at? I'm still evaluating Vic Beasley, even though we know it could happen to him. But you got what's Brown at guard. I mean,
Yeah.
I know they paid him some money,
Right.
but you gotta evaluate, and these guys gotta do what they're supposed to do.
Let's take a look at some of the scores from this past Sunday. No Falcons game after playing on Thanksgiving, but some interesting games around the NFL. We've already kind of talked about Baltimore's win over San Francisco. That probably highlights the day. Patriots offense continues to struggle. Boy, last night, a loss to the Houston Texans. What else jumps out at you? Washington gets a win again over Carolina.
Tampa.
Cincinnati joins the ranks of the teams who have won this year.
Tampa, I mean, looking at what they've done
Yeah.
the last couple of weeks, I mean, Jameis Winston, and looking at Jacksonville, what a disappointment, a disaster they've been this year.
Yeah, they kind of fallen apart there. Miami also continues to play hard. That organization may not be very good. The team may not be very good, but they have shown no quit whatsoever.
No, they haven't. I love what they're doing.
Pittsburgh gets the win against Cleveland, the revenge game from the Myles Garrett deal the other day.
Nobody is out there like Mike Tomlin. Man, Mike Tomlin, hashtag Rick Ross. I mean, he look like he ready to bust some freestyle lyrics right now. I love Mike Tomlin.
Well, they're back in the
Great
playoff.
year.
They're back in the playoff race again, legitimately speaking. The game against Buffalo just got flexed into prime time. So Pittsburgh right now in a wide open AFC, they're trying to make their move, and shame on Cleveland. I mean, just about all hype and I mean all sizzle, no steak. That's the most overrated organization in all sports.
What'd you think about the shirt that their coach had on?
Freddie Kitchens.
Freddie said they started it. What'd you think about that?
I think it's embarrassing.
And then Pittsburgh had on free.
Pouncey.
Free Pouncey.
Yeah, which is kind of funny. I mean, I don't think Pouncey should have been suspended either. Let's see a couple more of those scores real quick. Rams get a much-needed win. Oakland, boy, it's been rough for them 2 weeks in a row.
rough.
Looked awful against the Jets last week and handled in this big AFC West divisional showdown. The Magic may be running out for Gruden there, at least for right now.
I mean, no one expected them to be where they are.
And I'm telling you, New England, the AFC right now is wide open because by the loss, correct me if I'm wrong on this, New England losing, Baltimore winning, that puts the Ravens in the 1 seed position right now, which would mean season ended today, New England's got to go to Baltimore. Obviously, Foxborough is a very tough place to win, but they may not have that advantage in the AFC Championship game, at least based on where things stand as of right now.
Yeah, it is. I mean, think about Houston. I mean, they got a tough quarterback. Now, I ain't never, listen, Deshaun Watson, and this is why I love Deshaun Watson, and I'm going into college. The game he beat Alabama, I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen a quarterback perform under a tougher situation, but getting hit. I mean, I'm talking about getting smashed.
Yeah.
Again, he's doing that in the NFL, too.
All right, so that's the scores from around the league. Obviously, though, on this program, one of the things we love to do is celebrate Falcons history. We're thankful for the fact that Chuck was such a big part of Falcons history. And today, boy, you're talking about a really cool image. This is it. First of all, you love the uniforms.
Yep, this is the
Look
uniform.
at Chuck's high-top Nikes, too.
Yep,
Those are
old
nice.
school, right? High tops. You know, this
How much you get fined if these leggings fall down below that knee?
I know, right?
They're nice
This
and
old
tight
school.
where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, this is old school, the old school uniforms that the Falcons been using lately.
Who you with right there?
Oh, this is, let me get this right here. This is Tony Smith. He was our first-round draft pick out of Southern Miss.
Yeah,
it was
I
Bob
remember him.
Whitfield went first. We had 2 first-rounders a year.
Okay.
I was. Bob went first,
Yeah.
Tony second, I went third.
Yeah.
So this was the Arizona game, one of the first games ever in the Georgia Dome. And this is just me. You know, back then I was somewhat following the Falcons too legit to quit. I had my little do-rag on, you try to have my little bands on. So
By the way, old-time Falcons fans will notice Scott Case up here in the,
how about
the
that?
video board.
Old school, right?
Yeah.
Old school. So me and my son had a little debate the other day. See these little bicep bands?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Dad, that started with us. We're the Chucky. I used to rock that as a rookie, man.
Yeah.
Let that go. But
There you
anyway, you see us
I
all
like
beat
that.
up and stuff. I just pulled this in. It's just
By the way, a lot of people are not even old enough to remember back when the Georgia Dome had those teal seats, those green seats,
Oh,
because
right,
they changed to
right.
red and black before the dome closed.
Yeah,
that's
they
back
did.
in the old days, back when the seats were like green. I never understood why they were that color, but that's what the color they used to be.
and this is AstroTurf. We didn't play on
How
field
bad did
turf.
it hurt? I mean, how bad? Like, how different was
You want
it?
to see how different?
at that.
Oh my!
Look at that.
I'm a little ashy right here, but
Look at that.
I'm gonna cover up the ash. I still got turf burns. Look,
Oh, man,
I
that's
still
tough.
got turf burns. Hold up.
Oh, look out
Oh
now.
my
Look out
goodness.
now.
Oh,
Ladies, calm
Mike,
yourself-
you didn't
calm
say
yourself
that,
down.
Mike.
Calm yourself down, ladies.
All right,
Good stuff. So, yeah, Chuck always does that. And it's a great way for us to end the show thinking about the great times in Falcons history of the past. Of course, we appreciate you being with us here as well. We'll be back to speak to you again Friday, 1 p.m. for another edition of AJC, Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Huge thanks to Miller Lite, the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons, for making it all possible. Y'all enjoy a good week. We'll do more to kind of figure out what the future of this organization is going to look like and how 2020 can be better than 2019 has been. That comes up Friday at 1 p.m. for AJC, Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Tell your friends to tune in, and we'll look forward to speaking to you then.